Welcome to the Behind the Art Inspiration podcast, a sneak peek into the studio practices of all types of artists. Conversations for artists and fans of art who are sophisticated and savvy. I'm your host, Caroline Karp. Let's get to it. Well, hello, everyone. This is episode number 19 of the Behind the Art Inspiration podcast. In this episode, I'll be virtually traveling from my Safety Harbor, Florida studio across the pond to London and into the studio of Emmy.
Hello.
Emmy is a former Los Angeles fashion designer turned London artist, and she creates sunshine-infused work that celebrates the beautiful imperfections of life. And Emmy, on what you sent to me, you said that you work by the Thames River. So I want to start there, what that's like, and a little bit about your studio.
So yeah, we live in South London, and a lot of places in London are converted warehouse areas, and so our area of town is where a lot of warehouses were, where boats would come, and so yeah, we're on the Thames River. It's not beautiful Clearwater and beautiful Tampa and beautiful West Coast Florida though, or beautiful East Coast Florida, which I'm familiar with. It's kind of a brown river because the silt gets tossed up as the tide goes up and down, but we actually get a beach a couple times a day when the river goes really low. Mm-hmm. We can walk down to the beach and I can let my dog run around, but it's I imagine palm trees and other things, but it's not that. It's kind of yeah.
And you also told me that you travel a little bit of a distance to a print studio that you like to go to.
So I live south of the river, and my family's based here south of the river. And then I do some work here at my studio, and I do a lot of my packing, shipping, administrative work, and some larger paintings. But I go to a place called the Print Club in London, which is a print studio. It's a screen print studio, water-based screen print studio. And the people that are doing large editions of 50 of something where there's screen printing, where we expose the screens, we can wash out the screens, we can do a lot of different, there's a lot of techniques to do with screen printing. So yeah, I've been a member there for about like 2.5 years now. I think it's 2.5 years. Yeah, almost 3 years ago, I took a workshop, and I actually did some screen printing. I did one class in college that I totally forgot about. But I remember I took a tour of the studio when I first moved to London, and I was like, oh, I'm not neat enough for this place. I can't come here. And then I took a class like a year or two later, and then I ended up joining. But that's really helped me kind of get my art to where I feel like I'm starting to hit my stride, which is really nice.
And what I watched a few of your little videos that you had made, actually shared them on my story, and I loved watching your process where, and I could totally get into this, where you had just mixes of colors and just the freedom of being able to just like dip your brush in the color, right? And then will you explain your process? I was watching, so I understand, but could you explain to everyone, so you have all your colors around you and you're painting on top of what, and then you're doing what with the screen?
So yeah, so what I do is I use acrylic ink. They call it ink. It's really paint. I use acrylic paint, and I mix it with a medium. And a medium is, it makes sure that the paint doesn't dry into the silk screen. And then I paint directly onto a silk screen onto different shapes. It could be a small shape, a larger shape. I try to get the shapes so that they go into some standard frames. But I paint onto that, and then I pull a squeegee, and then the squeegee transfers that paint, those marks that I made, onto the paper below. So what happens is, I kind of know what it's going to look like when I do it, and I've done it enough times that I know how to mix the ratio of the medium to the paint for transparency. I know if I put too much pressure on the silk screen, I'll get a different mark. I've got a kind of a recipe of all these marks. But then when I pull up the print bed after I've pulled the squeegee, inevitably there's a surprise. Either maybe the squeegee's made a certain mark, maybe there's a little bit of, there's an etching effect that kind of happens where I think that the medium doesn't quite hit the paper in a certain way. So it's almost like the Monoprint is like my studio assistant, It's like the process is kind of like, and so it's allowed me to loosen up and also just kind of know and also if it's not exactly what I want that first time, sometimes I do a second layer on top. And sometimes those are some of my best works because they have these you start getting a layered effect similar to, your work or, anything that takes a long time.
So one interesting thing is that Emmy and I just figured out that we went to the same university, which is Old State University, and I used to spend hours in the print lab. Like I love it. I was into the monoprinting. However, I did it on plexiglass.
Oh,
so
wow.
I don't know if you've ever had that experience. It was a lot slicker and using different things like turpentine or alcohol or salt. Or in the layering of that, I felt, I really loved it, and it lended itself a lot to. In fact, I painted on the glass the same way I paint on the canvas.
Right.
That's not as much, and I was more intentional about the negative space, like the places I wasn't painting on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a different process because when you paint on a monoprint, whatever marks you put on the screen first, those are the ones going to come up first on the screen or on the prints. And then things that you layer behind that, let's say you put a little green, make a leaf, and you do it with a dark green outline, and then you fill it in with some, and then you do a little bit more green, and then you fill it in behind it with the light green. That dark green that you put down first, that's going to show.
It's going to come through.
What's that?
It's going to come through the other layers. Right?
It'll be the first. It'll show first. It'll appear onto the prints.
Right.
But if you put something right behind that dark green and then you pull the squeegee, it may not come through because the screen is only let that first layer come through.
What's the name of the medium you're talking about?
I use Daler Rowney, and it's called System 3. And it comes in it comes in different sizes. I think I'm still learning measurements here. I think it's a liter, but they come in different sizes. But different people there are other people that make them. And you could experiment also with some of the mediums that as long as your paint doesn't dry into your silk screen, you're good. The minute that paint dries into the silk screen can inevitably be clogged. You may have to restretch it and get a new replace the silk screen, which isn't the end of the world, but it's nice to keep your screens so you don't have to keep replacing them. So,
did you want to show us some of your work?
Yeah,
I know. Yeah.
So this one behind me is this is a silk screen. This is a monoprint. It's 2 layers. This is what I call a mini bloom.
Hold it a lot closer.
A mini bloom is, so mini bloom is, they're 23 centimeters by 23 centimeters, and which is kind of like the size of a 7-inch, like a not a 45, but kind of like a 7-inch record. And these actually sell really well for me. This is 2 separate layers. So you can see there's a dark blue behind the rose. And then I did it, and I was kind of like, and then I did a second layer with the light blue on top of it. And you can see where the squeegee kind of missed on the second round, but that's what I like about it. And you can see the different layers.
Right. Okay.
So, and this is a single layer monoprint. I did a series a year ago called the Emergence Collection, and it was based on the amaryllis blooms, which I had never forced grown bulbs before. I got it at the grocery store, and we had this bulb appearing in like January, and it really inspired me to do a whole collection based on the idea of emerging and new life kind of bubbling under the surface right before, kind of in the darkness of the winter. So this was part of that. And this one, it kind of looks like a I didn't mean to make it look like a butterfly, but it kind of came up like a butterfly. I think this one is 2 layers. This is a light pink. But see how I got that little etching effect? That came from probably some different brushes that I use. The fan brush makes that effect. I definitely used a lighter hand with this, if you can see. And then sometimes I'll get these swirling effects, and that's based on the medium not quite being mixed 100% into the mixed up. So I work very, very loose in the studio. But what I love about it also is I'm working around people that are working extremely tight, and they're doing these really amazing additions that have to be exactly the same. So I learn a lot when I'm there too about their techniques. So as I go along, I learn different techniques, and then they learn from me too. You know, they're like, oh, I can loosen up a little bit. I'm like, oh, I can do that. So
I think that you and I would have a lot of fun in the studio. I work very loose.
Yeah.
And
I think so too.
I like that one particular video that I shared. I liked all the containers of colors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming that you're not only mixing the colors, but you're actually mixing the medium in there.
Yes. Okay. So those containers that you see in those videos, those are on my, I did some reels on my Instagram and I think one of them might've been an IGTV. I can't remember, but so I have these little tiny plastic containers. You get them at like IKEA, and they're like what you would buy and put your sauce in you have leftover salad dressing. So I mix my paint, my acrylic paint with the medium, and then, you can tell my hands are mucky, and then what happens is when I pull that squeegee, I have a mix of all those colors, so I can get some really muddy colors. I can make some perfect beiges and some perfect grays from all those colors. So that happens as well. So sometimes I have this kind of muck bin, you know what? Some people do test. They test and test and test and know exactly what their color is going to look like. I might get a little paintbrush and kind of rub it on one of my sketchbooks and be like, okay, that looks okay. But I can't quite tell how much transparency. I do like 50% medium to 50% paint, but that can change depending on. So there's no way I can replicate what I do. I mean,
Right.
If I try to do something exactly the same, it would never be exactly the same, just because of all the different factors that happen.
Now the painting behind you that's got the blues and the greens and the pinks.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a monoprint or is that a painting?
It's a painting that my husband thinks it's finished. I'm not quite sure if it's finished. It was based on these little tiny, I wish I knew the name of the plants. They remind me of little ballerinas, or really these little pink flowers, and they have like little dangling things that hang off of them in the spring. So I did it based on that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's funny when I do a monoprint, I'm like done. I feel like, okay, it's done, or I'll go back and I'll fix something. I find with the painting, I can keep thinking about it for a really long time. And so, yeah, but it's a pretty large painting. I'd like to say it's done, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Well, that's okay. And then the one right next to you.
Okay, this is a screen. It's actually a folding screen. You can just see part of it, and I love this piece. And I think I want to do more screens, but you can tell also from this where I have like these. Let me get a little bit closer so you can see. So these layers, you can see I've done many, many layers on here. And then what happened was I ended up just doing some dark blue outlines and then filling in the background. So this is similar to what I do with the monoprints. Is sometimes I fill in the background, and I like to have a lot of negative space, because otherwise my paintings, there would just be too much going on. But yeah, so this one started out looking completely differently. I mean, I started that. I mean, this is finished now, but I remember it was a long process. Lots of space between layers.
Now, what's going on in the art world right now? This is where we made our original connection, and
yes,
I think we both know that it's a strange world, or something is happening, like an evolution in the art space, or so we think. And what I'm talking about is NFTs, right?
Yes.
And so and also Clubhouse. So there were a few things that happened, and I think they happened for us, even though we didn't even know each other, and we live in different countries, but we went to the same college, but simultaneously, I think we discovered them at the same time, which brought us together.
Right.
One is Clubhouse,
yes.
Like just entering the world of being able to speak to anybody in the world about topics that you're interested in, but then learning about NFTs, and you're like, well, what is an NFT? And is it something that can benefit me? Is it a way that I can get more eyes on my art? I mean, the learning curve is gigantic.
Yes. Yeah. And you're ahead of me with this. And I think what's cool about you is you dive in where I'm still like, I'm going to do some more research. First of all, I was like, what is an NFT? Non-fungible token. It sounds like a mushroom. Oh shoot, I got to make sure my
charger.
Yeah, my charger just looked like it. Yeah. Can you hold on a second? I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Excuse
So
me.
what she's talking about, she
We're
said
celebrating the imperfections here. That's what I do.
non-fungible tokens. So if you think Bitcoin, that's what we're talking about, in that artists are minting their work, mostly digital artists, to become part of the blockchain, right? So to somebody who has never known anything about Bitcoin, me, and learning about it, but then also hearing from Clubhouse that it's something that could really benefit artists, right? By say the piece behind me, say that I animated it, which I know how to do now, and I made it have some kind of motion. I mint it, put it in the blockchain, give it a name, purchase Ethereum, and then put it out into the world, because you still have to market it. Is this a good thing to do? Like, is this a wise thing for an artist like me to do? I have no idea.
I don't know, but you've done it. Excuse me. We're still waiting on the charge. I don't know what happened. Talk about technology. It's wonders of technology, and I've got it charged it up, but somehow my thing isn't charging.
I've minted six of them so far.
6 chargers?
Minted 6 charges. No, I've minted 6 pieces of art.
People are like, what is minting? Like, what is minting? Okay, first of all, with NFTs, how many languages do you feel? You feel like you just learned a new language in like 2 weeks, right?
I probably have I have a whole new vocabulary. It could probably fill a book. And I just learned the word shill. Do you know what shill means?
No, but it sounds like something I probably should know.
I think we could do a whole nother podcast on just the words, but shill means to like show off your art. So if you're like shilling your art, you're like shilling your NFTs.
You're like shimmy, shimmy, shake, shake.
Shill it, right? And the place that you shill it is on Twitter.
Well, I hear that Twitter. Yeah.
I have a Twitter account, but I've never really understood. That's another whole thing. I've never really understood Twitter. Like, you go on there and there's just like people just like saying all these things, and you're like, okay, well, here's my video. I haven't quite figured out how to engage there. So not only is there the Twitter, but then you also have to go to the Clubhouse and like talk to people about it. And is it a world that some artists will make it big and they'll understand it, and then some artists won't?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of hype. There's a lot of people. If you know people, I think it helps. I think it helps to hype it up. I don't know. I have an artist friend that I just saw, and he put up a bunch of his skull. He had a show a few years ago, and he sold the physical skulls, and now he's doing the skulls themselves as NFTs. And I'm fascinated by it because he was very focused, and it was all the same product, smaller scale works that he made into NFTs. But what I'm finding is I'm actually just asking questions to people that I kind of know and say, hey, listen, what is your take on NFT? And some people are not into it at all, and some people are into it.
So what have you learned? So so everybody's been, so far been listening to how I do it. I want to hear what you've learned.
Well, I've learned there are a lot of people, it's like a gold rush. I think a lot of people are coming to it very, very quickly. I think there's going to be a lot of quality in there, and I think there's going to be a lot of crap, excuse me. I think there's going to be some art that just isn't great, but art is in the eye of the beholder. So, there'll be art that people that won't be as high quality, but it will still have an audience. I don't know. Does my art have an audience in there? I'm not sure. What I do like about it, though, is that the art, if it keeps getting sold on there, the artist gets a percentage of the sales. So that whole conversation about provenance and all of that, I mean, what would be really cool is in the future if everything that we sold had some sort of, if everything we sold had, just taking photos of everything and getting it on my Excel spreadsheet sometimes feels overwhelming. But if everything had some sort of like a little mark on it or a thumbnail, then we can track it. And then, yeah, then everybody gets credit when credit is due, you know? I think
what does it do to the, I don't want to use the word typical, but to your collector who has no value in NFT and no value in even understanding that world?
In my collectors, or for the people that are collecting right now?
Your collectors or my collectors.
I think I have to explain it to them. I think I would have to, and I don't know if my collectors necessarily care.
That's my point, right?
I think there may be some that care, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're going to care. I think my collectors, for the most part, my art is meant to kind of uplift and make you feel good and make you kind of smile and have a good day. And so, are you going to get that same vibe from a digital token? I'm not sure. You know,
and I think, from what I understand, the collectors of the NFTs are going to be purchasing these big screens,
yes.
Right? And then they're going to, what I would gather is if, like, say they were a collector of a whole bunch of NFTs, maybe they illuminated on their screen, and then one day and then another day they want to look at something else.
You know what? I play Roblox. I don't know if you know what Roblox is. Roblox is it's like a social media sharing game for kids, and I play it with my daughter sometimes because I wanted to understand what she was doing when she went into these rooms and she put on dresses, and so I kind of understand this whole idea, and that my husband's coming here to help me with this charger. Yeah, it's not working. So I kind of understand that there's a little bit of it's a bit of a street cred. So all of a sudden my daughter will be playing and she wins a halo. So she prances around this game.
As long as it stays still.
It stays still. We got our charge. Okay.
As long as it stays still.
Thank you. So she'll be playing this game, and she plays this game, and all of a sudden she got a halo. And that halo, she's more interested in that halo in this virtual game than wearing a halo like that and getting a pretty dress to wear on the street. There's something about this street cred. But in that game, I'm in that game. I'm Mama Superbloom, just so you know, if you ever want to play, I'll play with you. I go into a room, I go into my apartment, and I charge myself up, and I take a snooze, and in front of where I'm sleeping in this little apartment in Roblox is a screen, and I can change the art on the screen. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know about this art, but you know, that's the idea. You have this kind of digital, you can change your atmosphere. So yeah, that could be an idea where you get your art, you don't have the copyrights to it, but you could actually project it on your wall or something. That would be really cool.
Right. Yeah. And so say you're somebody who, you know, a high net earner, right?
Right.
Say, and you're buying these NFTs because artists are selling these things for, I don't know, thousands and thousands of dollars, right? And so then it becomes the street cred. Then it becomes the story of, oh yeah, this is my NFT. I got it for, I don't know, $83,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then that just elevates that person to that person's friends.
Yes.
Right. And so they have somebody else in the room. They're like, I want to buy that. Right.
Exactly.
So I'll pay you $1 million for that. This is what I think. I'll pay you $1 million for that. And so somehow they get it. But what is really nice is that the artist then gets 5-10% of that sale.
Yes. Yeah. I think what's really cool, and I think the lesson with this is the artists continue to make money off of what they've originally produced. And it's the same thing. When I talked about this originally with my husband, he was like, it's kind of like used record stores. Those artists, they don't make any money from the used record stores. They only made money when they signed that record deal or when they went on tour or whatever. But those used records, for the most part, they're not getting anything else when they sell again. So the idea that our art could get money as it sells again, I think it's amazing. And so I think the idea of the artist, I think it's going to elevate the idea of artists in many people's minds. And maybe that idea of a starving artist is not going to be as, hopefully that we won't be hearing about that as much, where people are really going to start making a living. and have a viable business that even if they stop selling their art and they're retired, they're still going to make a little commission. It's like getting a little stipend.
But you have to make it in the NFT world.
You have to make it in the NFT world. You've got to get in there. So I'm looking into OpenSea, which I think is the one that you're on. Super Rare. I started applying and then I had to do a video and I was like, I
remember that I got to that point too.
You know what? I'm set up now. I was like, I'm not set up for a video. And now I'm like, maybe I'm set up. Oh, okay. I'm set up for a video now. Maybe I'll do that. So, what's interesting is that I feel like I usually do better when I sell stuff on my own, or I have my own little lane of what I'm doing. So it's like in this NFT thing, I'm like, how do I get my own little lane in this sea of people? I don't know.
Right. So my thought process behind starting with OpenSea was it was the easiest for me to test the waters.
Exactly.
In my little dramatic play. I would call it kind of my dramatic play. And yes, I did. I invested $100, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get my first NFT minted. And then if I stay in this collection, which it has 6, I have, I think, 14 in a vision of that collection, right?
Right.
I don't have to spend anything else. So I just keep minting them and putting them out. I guess the expenses in my time and also the marketing of it, right?
Yes.
Now, I do want to, so for NFTs, I also want to work with Super Rare, or I've heard that Foundation is now the new thing.
Foundation, I think you've got to get an invitation. So you got to know somebody to know somebody. I don't think it's as easy as a clubhouse invitation.
Right. So like, I think people are bolstering their Twitter accounts by saying, I've got NFT invites. If you retweet this, and if you like this and you share this, then I'll consider you for a foundation.
Oh.
There's a lot of bargaining going on between artists. Like that's also what's going on.
Yeah. It's a whole other world. I mean, but I'm open to it. I'm open to finding out more about it. I always want to know what's going on. I don't have to always be doing it, but I want to know what's going on and understanding how it's happening, who it's impacting. But I think what's happening is right now we're in the middle of it, and then there's going to be a shakedown, and we're going to see kind of what happens with it. Kind of the same thing with Clubhouse, where there's a lot of conversations and there's a lot of noise, and it's like hopefully it'll shake down, and it'll be like, then we'll start seeing where the quality is. And I think all these things.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention, I had a lawyer friend reach out to me, and he's like, it's all a scam. And I said, well, message me and tell me more about that. And he sent me a few articles on the matter and how it's a scam towards artists.
Right.
So you have to consider that part too. Yeah. I
don't know if it's a scam, but I think we're still learning it. I think right now there are a lot of people are putting money into it. I mean, there's a lot of money. I mean, you said you've invested, I think, $100, which isn't too bad. I hear people I think it depends on, I think it fluctuates when you mint your piece. So it should be interesting to see. I do think, the people that are, like Halsey, I think she had a drop, or she was working on one. Pussy Riot. Who else was doing one the other day?
And when you say a drop, like some people have no idea.
They call a drop. A drop is like they're releasing it. It's like a drop. I think it probably started with like street footwear or something, but a drop is like I've listened to some of these Clubhouse conversations where all of a sudden they've got everything up on the website. It's been minted, meaning I guess it's ready to go. And all of a sudden they count down, and then they start seeing who's bidding on all this stuff. And so the drop is the launch. It's I guess launch drop, same thing. But it's really fun because people get so excited, because their stuff is selling. But I think there are other people that, they put their stuff up there and they're like, crickets. And so and I'm like, I don't want crickets, but you don't know until you try.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, are your collectors, have you had any collectors you've had to explain this whole world to?
I was explaining it last night to one of them, and she just was like, it was like her listening to just something that was so foreign and didn't even understand it.
Yeah.
And she probably would never buy an NFT because she wants the physical artwork to hang on her wall.
Right. Right. And yeah, if your customers do, you know, maybe an NFT is kind of like, I hate to say, kind of like, you know, when we were kids, like the Cracker Jack, and you get the fun little things and you trade them and you have them. So it's still part of the art, but it's like an extension of the art. It might be just smaller things that, I don't know. It's the same as putting your art on mugs or tea towels or whatever. You just have like, you've got your main collection and you have your other components of what you do. Mm-hmm. So
that's how
I want my art to hang on walls, and I want my art to kind of live in the real world. And right. I want to understand this other world, but at the end of the day, it's all about human interaction. And so my art, I want people to feel good or feel uplifted or help heal, maybe. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I do think there's some healing power if art is around and it makes you feel good. So yeah, the NFT thing, I think it'll be a little small drop for me. We'll see. Stay tuned.
We can be accountability buddies, like check in and see how that's all going.
Yeah. I'm going to apply to Super Rare after this, but I don't even know if I don't even know who's getting accepted to Super Rare. I'm not sure. I don't even know if they would let me in. I don't know.
Right. That was going to be my thing too, but I like needed to see how it worked faster. Right. Yes. So that's why I did OpenSea. But I'm going to put all of these like different things into the show notes so that people can kind of check out that space. Like the OpenSea, I don't know. I'll probably put a link to if I can, in the show notes. Yeah, and they can find you a place. I also have it where they can find you and your artwork, so they can take more of a look at that. And if they follow you on Instagram, they can watch the videos that I was talking about. Yes. And is there anything else that you want to share with us?
Well, I think the one thing we didn't touch base on was art journaling. And art journaling was kind of like the springboard for how I got started with my art.
I love that. Okay.
Yeah. And so I started out, I was a fashion designer. I closed my business about 6 years ago in Los Angeles. And then I took a year off and I moved to Asheville, North Carolina. And I felt a little lost. And I wasn't quite sure what to do. And it wasn't a place where I could really get production of my clothing done. And I was pretty burnt out. So every day I was doing a daily art journal challenge, and I was using books kind of similar to this small book, which is like, I don't know, we call it A5 here in London, but it's about, you know, like half the size of a regular piece of paper. So I would do daily work in these art journals. And so I found that this was a place for me to kind of practice a lot of techniques. It was a place for me to have some sort of intentional daily practice for what I was doing. And then a place where I could, it was pretty vulnerable because I was sharing it every day on Instagram, and there was some good art and there was some bad art, but something I look back on, I'm like, oh, that's not too bad. But what happened with that was people encouraged me to go larger. They said, you know what, I mean, you don't have to work in a book. Why don't you start working on canvas? So I started working on canvases. And the one thing with art journaling is it's a lot about layers. It's a lot about, you can put things down, you can rip it up, you can put something else down. You play with different materials, different mediums. And so I think it really informed a lot of my work and what I do now because of that layering process. And so I've done some kind of like live stream workshops, like when lockdown first happened, that were free, that were fun. I'm not doing that right now, but I find the art journal practice is a really good thing. And I haven't been doing as much of it lately, just because I've been focused on other things, but I do think it's a really good practice. And I don't know if you have anything else to say about art journaling or how it affects your work.
I haven't actually been doing much art journaling lately. I think my art journaling goes right onto the canvas. Like I'm very prolific. Yeah. So I think that your journal pages are my canvases right now.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, it took me a while. You know what it is? I'm really free in my books, and I'm really free in my monoprints. I'm not as free when I do a big canvas. And so I want to be able to translate that onto my canvases.
I think you need to buy a plane ticket and come to my Florida studio and paint.
I think we'd have a really good time.
Yeah.
I have some Florida plans for the summer, and I think I'm fully vaccinated by then. So we'll have to look at some. I don't think it's that much of a drive from where my parents live.
Where do your parents live?
They live in Atlantic Beach, Florida.
Where's that?
At Jacksonville. It's
Jacksonville. Okay.
Yeah. So that sunshine, that sunshine beach vibe has informed my work, definitely.
Amelia Island area?
Yes, Amelia Island, Neptune Beach, Sharks Beach. Yeah. St. Augustine, Ponte Vedra. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the Thames River is awesome, but Thames River is not, it's not the Atlantic Ocean or the, where you live. So it's not the Gulf.
Okay, well, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. You stay here.
Okay.
Hold on. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching and listening. And thank you, Emmy, for coming live. And in March of 2020, which is, gosh, it's March 2021 right now. So a year ago, I had the vision of starting the International Online Art Collective, which is a diverse group of artists from around the world who value the power of art to inspire, provoke, and heal. And that group has been going really strong. And we have some really big plans of collaborations and a 3-year project and virtual shows and in-person shows. But anyways, from that group, I formed this podcast because at first I interviewed all those artists, and now I'm reaching out to artists that are coming into my world, and like Emmy, and so it's been super fun for me and a way to keep engaged during this pandemic. But thanks again, Emmy.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to sign out, but stay right there.
Okay.